Hello everyone, and welcome back to Discomfort Films. I made some major mistakes in my first recording that I didn't realize until halfway through editing it, so this is my second try! Hooray! First video of the new year, baby. My New Year's resolution is to stop apologizing for my upload schedule. I ain't getting paid for this, videos will be out when they're out, fuck you. Seriously though, thank you to everyone who checked out my videos, commented, or subscribed in 2023. I still get a steady trickle of subscribers in between videos, and it gives the impression that people are still interested in my stuff even if I go a while in between uploads, and I'm so grateful for that. When I first started this channel, I knew I wanted to do film-related content, but wasn't 100% sure what. Although I've definitely leaned into horror and cult films here, my tagline is horror, cult, controversial, and more, and this is the and more. And although horror is my home, I still watch other stuff, and I don't have the time or energy to cover everything I see in detail. It is fun to be able to talk about films that I like that wouldn't normally fall under the umbrella of stuff that I cover, which is why I like doing the Blu-ray collection update videos as well. So despite being kind of a depressing and anxious time to be a creative or an appreciator of real art made by humans and not machines or algorithms, this was a really strong year for film in my opinion. I have mixed feelings about reducing films to numerical ratings, but almost everything in my top 10 this year I gave 4.5 or 5 stars on Letterboxd when normally would be top 3 or 5. And I've been doing these on there for the better part of a decade. As always, I don't have the time to watch everything. I still haven't seen The Iron Claw or Zone of Interest, and there's always stuff that I miss, but anyway, the runners-up are Skinamarink, Beau is Afraid, Priscilla, Saw X, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Talk to Me, The Boy and the Heron, Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. Number 10, Barbie. When a stereotypical Barbie starts having an existential crisis, she must travel from Barbie land to the human world and figure out why. I love how, in a year where movies about World War II, the genocide of indigenous Americans, and a relationship between a 30-year-old and a 13-year-old, the film with the most obnoxious discourse is the doll movie. Welcome to the 2020s, I fucking hate it! Although not all of the jokes landed for me, I found Barbie to be a really fun and uplifting movie with some great emotional moments and a bit of existentialism that elevates it above just a typical brand movie, I guess. I don't know what the word for these kinds of films now are. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are perfectly cast and so entertaining to watch, but Ken definitely steals the show. I also love the production design and the costumes for Barbie Land. I always get a kick out of seeing life-size toy houses and props, especially when they're brought to life with this much care. Number 9, The Holdovers. A curmudgeonly teacher at a rich boarding school has to stay behind over Christmas break to watch the kids who aren't going home, and forms an unlikely bond with one of his students. This feels like something that's destined to become a modern holiday classic. It's heartfelt without feeling saccharine, and the characters feel so real and relatable. There's a sense of warmth while also having a bittersweet and cynical edge when it's needed. I know myself and many other people tend to get depressed over the holiday season for various reasons, and I think this film really speaks to that. This is definitely a throwback to films from the 70s. I really like the aesthetic of films from that period, and this one captures that really well. It also works with the theme of the movie and how the past isn't all that different from the present, and I thought that was kind of a cool way to illustrate that. I also gotta mention Paul fucking Giamatti in this movie, he's so great. Although all 3 of the main performances in this are wonderful. Dominic Sessa plays the student, and this is literally his only acting credit, which is fucking insane. And Divine Joy Randolph is great as well. Number 8, Past Lives. Past Lives tells the story of 2 childhood friends, one of whom emigrated from South Korea as a child while the other stayed behind, and the various times they reconnect over the next 2 decades. This is such a tender and real look at relationships and how people can grow apart and come back together, and it's so emotionally complex and nuanced. I think there's something here that damn near everyone can get something out of. And it also features 2 incredible lead performances. Greta Lee is rightfully getting a lot of attention, but I think T.O.U is kind of getting slept on. The first time where she kind of breaks up with him over Skype and his reaction to it, that almost made me cry, dude. I think that's just part of the universal human experience where you just wonder what your life would have been like if you made a different decision or took a different path, and this movie really gets that. Number 7, May December. 20 years after a media scandal where a 34-year-old woman had an affair with a 13-year-old boy, an actress who's playing the woman in an upcoming film visits the couple to do research. May December has the garnish of a campy TV melodrama or a psychological erotic thriller, but it's so much more complex and uncomfortable than that. When I first saw it, I was kind of surprised that people were calling it a comedy. There were moments for sure, but I didn't find it that funny overall. I've also had the inverse reaction to other films where I've heard people talk about how disturbing it is, but I just come away finding it funny, so I don't know, maybe it's one of those situations. I actually watched a video by Broey Deschanel about the film and its influences, and it made me appreciate what the film was going for so much more. And it's actually really impressive how well the film balances all these weird emotional tones. Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore are great, but Charles Melton's performance is so quietly devastating it will be staying in my mind for a long time. Number 6, Oppenheimer. This is about physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer and his role in the creation of the atomic bomb during World War II and the personal and political aftermath. I love the nonlinear and subjective approach to the story, which I think elevates it above the average biopic or war drama. As you would expect from a Nolan production, all the technical elements from the visuals to the sound design are impeccable. Admittedly, there are moments in the third act where it feels its length for me personally, but this is such a uniquely immersive experience. The entire A-list cast does a great job, and it goes a long way in helping you remember all these figures, even if you don't spend that much time with them. Number 5, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Following on Into the Spider-Verse, Miles reunites with Gwen and discovers a secret society of spider people from across the dimensions. This is one of those movies I was expecting to lose some novelty on my second at-home viewing compared to the theatrical viewing, but to my surprise it didn't. It does feel very much like a Part 1 movie and ends on a hell of a cliffhanger, but there's still so much to take in here, and I came out of it feeling like I got my money's worth. The animation and the visual style in this movie is breathtaking. I love the aesthetic of Gwen's world in particular, and the new characters they introduce here are a lot of fun. I guess I'll address the elephant in the room and say that I hope the working conditions for the animators improve for the third film. I'm sorry, Phil Lord, but you can't be tweeting animation is cinema while treating the artists who create it like shit. Number 4, Godzilla -1. Following the end of World War II, Tokyo is attacked by a giant radioactive monster known as Godzilla, and a surviving kamikaze pilot and an assortment of other characters must find a way to stop it. It's impressive that a franchise can produce one of its best entries when it's been going on for almost 70 years. I think that just speaks to how enduring Godzilla is, both as like a monster and a metaphor. Godzilla -1 has some stunning kaiju set pieces that have a real sense of scale and stakes to them, and it's all anchored by a heartfelt human drama about recovery and finding community. I saw it with a friend who told me he wasn't a big Godzilla fan and had low expectations, and he came out of it really enjoying it, so that was cool. As a fan, I like dumb rock'em sock'em robot fights as much as anybody, but it bugs me when certain fans act like that's all giant monster movies can ever be, and in fact I think the best examples in the genre can do both. Number 3, Anatomy of a Fall. At an isolated French chalet, a man dies falling out a window, his wife is the main suspect, and their blind son is the only witness. I was kinda late to jump on this one, and having heard so much praise for it for weeks beforehand, I was going into it like, okay, let's see. But once it got going, I was like, damn, they were right. I love it when that happens. On the surface, it seems like a simple courtroom drama, but it's so much more than did they do it. It's more of an examination of a dysfunctional marriage and what it's like to have the worst moments of your life blown up and examined by strangers. The screenplay and the performances are amazing. It really takes something to make a scene of a couple arguing, something that gets me on the edge of my seat. Number 2, Poor Things. Poor Things follows a strange young woman who is brought to life by a mad scientist, leaving her isolated life and experiencing the world. I don't always get into Yorgos Lanthimos stuff, but I really got into this. It's weird, it's horny, it's feminist, it's the funniest movie I've seen this year by far. I saw this a little bit early at one of those like specialty theaters with a crowd that was really into it. Like it was one of those showings where I missed dialogue because the audience was cracking up so much, and all I could think was like, fuck, I wish I saw Beau is Afraid with this kind of audience. That would have been so much more fun. The movie is kind of a weird twist on Frankenstein, and I'm a sucker for those kinds of stories. I love the combination of the Victorian-era setting with these surreal, whimsical fantasy elements and the satire of societal norms and expectations. The messages are arguably pretty simple and nothing that hasn't really been done before, but the way the film does it is just so much fun, which is One of many weird parallels this movie has with Barbie. The main character was so identifiable to me, and I loved watching her react to shit. There's some really committed performances here. I loved Willem Dafoe as the mad scientist. By the way, if the words Willem Dafoe as the mad scientist aren't enough to sell you on a movie, I don't know what will. Emma Stone is absolutely fearless, and Mark Ruffalo is hilarious. Number 1, Killers of the Flower Moon. When oil is discovered on Osage land in Oklahoma in the 1920s and the tribe members become rich, a series of murders of Osage people breaks out. Sorry, I don't normally like to make personal attacks over, like, different tastes in film, but if you're one of the ones who kept complaining that this was too long, you're just weak. I'm sorry. Killers is definitely long and meditative, but I thought it was perfectly paced, and I was engrossed for the entire runtime. Scorsese directs the shit out of this movie, and the ideas and themes here feel like both kind of a culmination, but also a subversion of some of his previous work. Someone more eloquent than me could probably explain this better, but I feel like in like many other of his films about gangsters and criminals, like, it's definitely not glamorizing them, but it does like kind of show on a surface level like why this kind of lifestyle would be appealing. But Killers of the Flower Moon is just such a bald-faced depiction of banal human evil, and that really stuck with me. It's also got an incredible cast from top to bottom. You got Leo and De Niro, Lily Gladstone getting much-deserved accolades, and even the actors in smaller parts like Cara Jade Myers, William Bellio, and too many others to name were just so memorable. Like, even actors that had like 5 minutes of screen time, they find a way to make them stand out. It's also one of those films I felt was really elevated by the ending. A lot of these movies that are dramatizations of real events have some kind of where are they now epilogue, but the way this movie does it is so creative and interesting. Anyway, those were my personal top 10 movies of 2023. I'm curious to know what you think. Are there any movies coming out in 2024 you're particularly excited about? Off the top of my head, I'm really excited for Dune Chapter 2. And I've been seeing these really cryptic teasers for this Oz Perkins serial killer movie called Longlegs that looks super interesting. As for future videos, I have a script for Nacho Cerda's Death Trilogy that is mostly complete. I'm just waiting for... I ordered a secondhand copy of the DVD, and I'm just waiting for that to arrive so I can check out some of the bonus stuff on there and maybe incorporate it into my script. And I'm also working on a Blu-ray collection update video. My Vinegar Syndrome Black Friday stuff finally arrived, and they're all blind buys. I got a little silly this year, so I've been working through those, and there's some really cool stuff in there that I'm excited to talk about, so yeah, hopefully I will see you back here soon. Once again, this was Discomfort Films. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.